Can a simple data sheet change the course of a legendary team, like Ferrari? What Vasseur and Leclerc saw in Hamilton's telemetry after the Las Vegas GP was so shocking that not even they could deny it. Ferrari is on the brink of technical collapse. The Las Vegas Grand Prix not only marked one of the most unpredictable races of the 2025 season, it was also the scene of one of the most uncomfortable revelations for Ferrari since the arrival of Lewis Hamilton to the team. While the lights went off and the media focused their attention on the podiums and abandonments inside the Maranello garage, there was a very different situation. Behind closed doors, Vasseur and Leclerc observed, on an analysis screen, the harsh technical reality of their car. What they found wasn't simply disappointing, it was devastating. The telemetry of the SF25 driven by Hamilton not only showed a lack of competitiveness, but a series of anomalies that defied even the engineer's own understanding. The data didn't lie. And that was precisely the problem. In areas where, in theory, Hamilton should have taken advantage thanks to his precise and aggressive driving style, the car reacted erratically, almost capriciously. Traction on corner exits, especially in the slow and technical sectors, was so unstable that each acceleration seemed more like a lottery than a controlled execution. The SF25 not only compromised performance, but completely nullified one of the British's most feared strengths, its ability to maximize muzzle velocity without losing control. The most frustrating thing for both Hamilton and Leclerc was discovering that the differences between both cars were not attributable to setup or driving style. Both cars operated under almost identical configurations, and even so, the behavioral variables were not only different but contradictory. For Vasseur, that moment was a total alarm. Internally, data review and revalidation protocols were activated, which are generally reserved for serious reliability incidents. The question that arose was as direct as it was chilling. Is this car structurally defective? Leclerc, a direct witness to Hamilton's decline in performance, found himself in an uncomfortable position. He himself had started the weekend with optimism, trusting in the progression of the SF25 compared to the previous model. However, watching a 7-time world champion fight the car, not the rivals, was a disconcerting experience. The Monégasque's face during the post-race review said it all, a mix of disbelief, frustration, and concern. Because if Hamilton, with his track record, his race reading, and his ability to adapt, can't make this car work, then who can? For Ferrari, what happened in Las Vegas was a silent slap in the face. There were no public explosions nor aggressive messages. It was a technical blow, one of those that is felt more in pride than in the results. And in Formula One, that type of impact is the most difficult to repair. Because what was lost in Las Vegas wasn't just time or points, it was confidence. Confidence in the project, in the car, in the technical decisions that were made during the development of the SF25. Confidence that now Vasseur will have to rebuild from the foundations, knowing that Hamilton will not tolerate any more structural errors, and that Leclerc is beginning to wonder if this will be, again, another lost year. Ferrari's technical crisis in Las Vegas was not the product of a specific error or a strategic misinterpretation. It was the direct consequence of an accumulation of structural problems that, for the first time, were exposed without possibility of evasion thanks to the surgical precision of the telemetry of Hamilton's car. What was discovered in that analysis was a chain of interlocking weaknesses that had remained latent until someone with the ability to read a car, like Hamilton does, brought them to light. That combination of until then invisible errors was what unleashed an internal storm at Ferrari. It all started in the low-speed traction zones, critical segments of the Las Vegas circuit that demand immediate response from the rear axle. The SF25 sensors showed something that alarmed engineers, progressive microslips that appeared without logical cause. Even under ideal conditions with optimal tire temperature, stable pressure, and controlled braking distribution, the car delivered a behavior that had no clear technical explanation. Every time Hamilton applied power coming out of a corner, the rear axle began to lose traction unpredictably, forcing the driver to make multiple millimeter corrections to maintain the trajectory. The level of instability was such that microblocks were observed during gentle braking, where in theory there should not be any type of tension in the system. The car seemed to react with structural rigidity every time it was precisely required. But this was not the most worrying thing. By superimposing Hamilton's telemetry with that of Leclerc in equivalent sectors, it was discovered that the car did not respond symmetrically between both drivers, despite sharing exactly the same setup. The braking system, in particular, showed subtle but constant differences in the pressure exerted on each axle, as if the car interpreted identical inputs differently. Added to this mechanical confusion was a failure in thermal management that ended up unleashing chaos. The SF-25 showed a chronic inability to warm up the front tires in time. This caused severe understeer in the opening laps of each stint, compromising corner entry and Hamilton's ability to attack late braking points, a distinctive feature of his style. But it wasn't just a question of temperature. It was a failure of integration between the suspension, weight transfer, and the car's thermal map. The tires simply didn't reach the ideal range in the expected window, and that meant the car couldn't be driven as designed. However, the final blow was neither a design error nor a complex technical failure. It was a cone, a simple delimitation cone, one of those that abounds in urban layouts. The SF-25 hit it just glancingly, but the impact was enough to generate a sudden loss in the aerodynamic flow of the car's underside. This instantly destabilized the diffuser, causing a brutal drop in rear downforce under full acceleration. What for any other car would be a minor annoyance, in the Ferrari became a trigger for chaos. The car lost support just at the moment when maximum traction was needed. Hamilton had to correct with the reflexes of a veteran driver to avoid an immediate spin. This incident, otherwise anecdotal, served as irrefutable proof that the SF-25's aerodynamic platform was not only fragile, but extremely sensitive to minute changes in flow. That vulnerability was not in the plans. It was not something planned. And that's what really scared the technical team. Because if a Formula One car is unable to absorb a minor hit without breaking down aerodynamically, it means that its design does not have structural tolerance. And in modern Formula One, that tolerance is vital to surviving unpredictable races and hostile environments like Las Vegas. What that data unleashed was not just a technical alert. It was a complete rethink of the car. And the most serious thing for Ferrari is that these errors were not detected in the tests, nor in the simulation phase, nor in the databanks. They only came to light when someone with Hamilton's level of insight confronted them in real conditions. Telemetry not only reflected the problem, he shouted it, and now all of Maranello listens to it. When the Ferrari team returned to Maranello after the Las Vegas Grand Prix, the atmosphere at the headquarters was not that of a team that had simply failed to perform. It was the awkward silence of an organization that had just discovered, through its own data, that it had built a car with shaky foundations. The usual post-race technical review session, which on other occasions flows as standard procedure between engineers and drivers, this time became an internal autopsy. What was analyzed was not just Hamilton's performance on the track, but the entire concept of the SF-25. And what was discovered triggered a shakeup at all decision-making levels of the team. Frédéric Vasseur, team leader, assumed a position of public restraint, but internally he was direct. The failures detected could not be repeated for even one more race. What he saw on screen was something that not only compromised immediate performance, but called into question the car's entire design philosophy. The private conversations, as revealed by members close to the technical core, did not revolve around how to improve the SF-25. The issue was much more serious, whether the car in its current state was even a valid basis for evolution. Because it is one thing to adjust a concept that has potential, and quite another to work on a broken architecture. And what Hamilton exposed in Las Vegas was exactly that. Charles Leclerc, for his part, experienced a double crisis. The first, professional. Face the evidence that your car, the same one you have defended and developed for years, may be flawed from its birth. But the second was more intimate. Seeing Hamilton, a champion with decades of experience in winning environments, unable to squeeze out the car, activated a dangerous mirror in Leclerc. Because if Lewis, with his ability to adapt and read the race, cannot take advantage of it, then the conclusion is clear. The problem is not the driver. And that leaves Leclerc at an emotional crossroads that goes far beyond the technical. The engineers, faced with pressure, began to internally filter proposals for total reconfiguration of the aerodynamic package. There was talk of structural modifications to the flat bottom, a new geometry in the rear suspension, and even possible redesigns of the front axle cooling ducts. But the problem was not just technical. It was also cultural. Ferrari has been carrying for years an inertia of conservative decisions, of prioritizing the short term over the long, of avoiding risks in the name of reliability. And what Hamilton's data made clear is that that philosophy no longer works. In modern Formula One, those who do not take bold risks are trapped in structural mediocrity. The pressure on the simulation department also intensified. How is it possible that the software did not detect these mismatches? How come no predictive model warned about unstable behavior in slow corners or aerodynamic hypersensitivity? The failure in Las Vegas was so obvious that it exposed a deficit not only in the physical car, but in the technical infrastructure that should have validated it before reaching the track. Blind faith in simulated data was replaced by the harshness of facts. And in Maranello, that type of awakening usually has consequences. Leave it in the comments what you think about all this.